Someone in a Facebook group recently asked whether there was an Affinity Photo tutorial about doing like letters written in the sand. Now I had a quick look around and I couldn't find one personally, so I thought I'd have a go at adapting a Photoshop tutorial for Affinity Photo. Now it seems to me there are sort of different types of tutorials in this respect, either doing it on a photograph of actual sand, or like in this case making up the sort of fake sand background and putting the text onto that. This seems to be the easier of the options, so I've gone with this one first, and I will try and look at doing another one later about doing it on an actual image of real sand. Now this is an adaptation of a Photoshop tutorial by Blue Lightning TV, and I will freely admit I've adapted it as best I can, but I think the Photoshop end result was possibly better because they have more control over the effects that we're going to add than we currently have with Affinity Photo. Hopefully at a later date, when Affinity Photo comes up to a newer version, we may have a few more options in the FX panel to help get a better result. So let's plow on with this. So first thing we need to do, I'll shut this down, is to make a new document. Now in theory you can make it any size you like, but mine is going to be 1500 pixels by 1000 pixels, but you can do it whatever size you like. But the Blue Lightning TV tutorial said to make the DPI 150, so that is what I've done, and to make sure that the color format is RGB 8. So again, that's what I've done. So I click OK and I have my new document. So I'm going to click on the add a pixel layer, and we now need to flood fill this with a color for sand. So I'm going to click on the flood fill tool. Now currently this is set on white, so I'm going to click on the white foreground twice to open up the color chooser. Now you could pick whatever color you want for your sand, but sticking with the Photoshop tutorial, I'm going to enter the hex code, and that is F0E2AF, and just press return, click close, and then just click somewhere in the middle of this layer to flood fill that with the color. Now personally, I personally would have maybe gone with a slightly darker orangey color, but this is the color that I am sort of copying from the original Photoshop tutorial. So now we want to add some noise, so I'll come up to filter, noise, and add noise. Now I personally found that around the 40% mark was good. In the Photoshop tutorial they did it about 3, which is hardly noticeable in my opinion, with Affinity Photo, so I've upped it to 40, but I'm keeping it on Gaussian and put a tick in monochromatic, and then just click apply. So we now have a sort of grainy sand effect. So now we're going to move on to the text. So I'm going to click on the text tool down here, and then I'm going to click on the character button up here to open up the character panel. So the first thing I'm going to do is to select a font. Again, sticking with the Photoshop tutorial, he went with MV Boli, B-O-L-I. So I'll click on that, The size I'm going to start with is 96, but I will increase this slightly. And then we want a colour. At the moment it's set on black, so we'll click on this and I'm going to change that to white. And then all I need to do now is to come somewhere in the document and just click and then start typing. So go with serif Affinity Photo. Now I can close this character box, I don't need that anymore, and I'll just highlight all the text here and I will put it onto centered, and then I will come to the move tool and I'll just roughly center this for now. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hold down the control button, come to the corner, and then I'm just going to increase that size a bit to about there, and then I will center it using the align button that's up here, center it horizontally and vertically, and click OK. So I am happy with that now. So next thing I want to do is I want to select all this text. Now you can, if I remember correctly, you could do this from the select menu. You could do selection from layer, but what is possibly easier is if you hold down the control or command key on a Mac and click on the A of this logo here, it will automatically select all the text for you. And we just want to feather this selection slightly, so again I'll come up to the select menu, come down to feather, or you can do shift and F6, and I'm just going to feather it by 1 pixel and click apply. Now you need to highlight the bottom layer because we are going to make a selection of this text but from the bottom layer. So I just need to press Control and J, or what I could have done was right click this and come to duplicate, which is the same as Control and J. So if I turn off that layer and that layer, as you can see I have the text but in the sandy colour. So I'll turn back on the bottom layer, and I don't really need this text layer at the moment, so I'll leave that hidden, and I can now also turn off the selection area. I could do it at the moment, but I'm just going to leave it there so I know where it is roughly that I'm working on. I will make sure I'm highlighted onto this second pixel layer, and which has got the text on it, and I'm just going to rename this and call this outer. Is that how you spell outer? Not certain. And then to this I'm going to add some effects. So I'm going to click on the FX button that's down here, and I'm going to put a tick into bevel emboss, and then actually click on the words bevel emboss to get the options. Now I can press Control and D just to get rid of that selection area so I can see the area that we're working on now. And I'm going to make the type pillow. I'm going to leave it on pillow, but there are other options. You've got pillow there, and then I'm going to make the radius 8, and I'm going to make soften 8. Now you could tinker with the depth. At the moment it is linked to the radius, but if you click on this link and break it, you could tinker with the depth independent of the radius, but I'm going to leave it linked so they are both on 8. But if you want to alter yours different, you can make it different. So next we want to change the direction. Now again, we want it pointing downwards in a certain direction. It depends on how much of an effect you are going to go for and where you want the shadows. The choice is up to you, but I'm going to go with minus 128 and for azimuth and 0 for elevation. So next we're going to make alterations to the highlight and shadows. So I just need to click onto the color bar here, and we get the different options to change color, opacity and blend mode. So I'm going to change the blend mode to color dodge. I'm going to leave the color as it is, but I'm going to lower the opacity down to about 12%. Then I'm going to click on the black color bar to get the options for that. I'm going to leave the blend mode at multiply and lower the opacity down to 50%, and then I'm going to close that. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to duplicate this layer. Again, you can press Ctrl and J or right click it and come to duplicate, and then I'm going to rename this inner. Now because you duplicated it with effects added, the effects are also added. So if I click on the FX icon, it will bring back the layer effects, and I can make some different settings. So I'm going to leave it on pillow. Oh no, sorry, I'm going to change it to inner. I'm going to increase the radius up to 17, and again, if I wanted, or you wanted to make the depth different, that is a choice that you can make, but I will keep them linked both on 17, and I will just slightly lower the soften rate to 7. I'm going to leave the azimuth and elevation as they are, and the highlight opacity I'm going to drop down to 0, and the shadows I'm going to drop down to 30%. And click on close for that. And then if you wanted to leave it like that, come off of that tool, you could just save and export it as is, but I want to sort of, again, like the Photoshop tutorial, make it look like this is sort of going off into the distance. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to right click this layer and come down to merge visible, which will make a new layer which is a combination of all the layers below. And then I'm going to come to the perspective tool, which is in the same menu as the mesh warp tool, and it will bring up this grid that's on the top of the layer, and then it's just a case of moving the corners around until you're happy. Zoom out a bit, and then I'm going to bring out the bottom ones well off of the image here. Make it like, try and keep it straight like that. Click apply, press Ctrl and 0 to bring it back, and I'll just select the move tool and just center it a bit better. And because underneath this particular layer you've still got this color background showing through, where we've moved it inwards you can't really see the edge. I mean, there is a slight line going down there where the grain is slightly different, but it's very, very hard to sort of really discern the difference. So basically that is the end of that tutorial, and like I said, I will try and look at adapting one where they do it on a proper sand image, a beach image, where also they have like the little lumps of sand going around the letters. If I can find one I can easily adapt, that is. So hopefully this has been of some use to somebody. So thank you for watching, and goodbye.